What up? Welcome back. It is Bones. And in this one, let's talk about how I collect DC Multiverse from McFarlane and a little bit of tips and tricks that I have used to amass an awesome McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now, first off, of course, it's been about 3 years since McFarlane started releasing DC Multiverse figures. I do have a main shelf over here, and I have a picture where you could see the very first figures that I bought, and it wasn't too much. I think I had the Bat Raptor and Batman and Superman and a Nightwing. And starting from those humble beginnings, I have amassed an awesome DC Multiverse collection. Now, of course, these pretty much go for $19.99. That's the way it's been from the beginning. You do have collect to build figures going for $24.99, and then you get into your different prices for your mega figs and your vehicles, and also specialty sets like the Year 2 Batman set. But it is kind of interesting because they usually do differentiate in price. I mean, I have gone to some Walmarts, and when I ring up the figure, it goes to $19.97, which is rather interesting. And sometimes people falsely claim that McFarlane has raised his prices, when in actuality, it's usually at GameStop, when even if a figure is $19.99, they do end up charging you $24.99 for some reason, because it's like an upcharge, I guess. And sometimes they do get figures early, so it is understandable. But usually if you go to their actual website, most of the figures on there are $19.99. And of course, McFarlane figures can be found on a lot of sites. All of your top online toy stores. You have Big Bad, you have Entertainment Earth, then you get into your stores, you have Walmart, Target. I sometimes get figures from Best Buy. Of course, now we do have the McFarlane Toy Store as well to get different figures from there. And always there is the seller sites, which is like eBay and Amazon. Amazon also being a big seller of McFarlane toys. So McFarlane definitely playing the numbers game. He likes to make a lot of product and then, send it out and see what sells. And you cannot deny that he has the numbers of all the feedback of the SKUs and what sold and what ended up selling on sale. So McFarlane knows all the numbers and definitely has the real facts of what sells and what doesn't sell. But now that we've talked a little bit about price, let's go into the different styles of McFarlane figures. Of course, you have the general releases. These are basic figures that McFarlane's been putting out from the beginning, which was, Batman 1000, Superman 1000, basic figures like that. Now, when I do buy these figures, the standard releases, I usually end up buying the maximum of 3 figures. Now, this all depends if I like the figure, if I have custom work that I want to do with the figure, how easily it is to find the figure. I kind of go with the flow on deciding how many figures I'll buy from each release. But to give a demonstration, I'm going to do the Wally West Flash. Now, of course, first I bought 2 from Walmart online that came in package like this. They were $19.99. And I have my open one here. Now, what I ended up doing actually was repainting this one. And I just loved the way it came out. I actually still pick this figure up and mess around with him because I do enjoy him a lot. But all this time since I did that review and did the repaint video, I've been wanting a regular version, that the way it was released without any alterations. So I've been biding my time looking for a really cheap alternative. I've been checking on the online stores. They're still going for 20 or even more. So I just never pulled the trigger. But I always do check eBay. That way I could, pick up the figure on its own. Sometimes you get the stand, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get the accessories, sometimes you don't. But it is just up to you what you think is the best value. Now, I finally did pull the trigger. I did pick this up from eBay, and it actually cost me $12, with tax and shipping, it was like, 13 and change. So I was really happy to finally pick this up. Now, I just bought it loose, luckily with the stand and with some of the effects, but it is the original release of Wally West. And of course, this is how you can save money by holding off on your third one, like me, that I wanted one that didn't have any paint on it or anything like that. I still want a standard version for my collection. And if you hold off and wait enough time, you can always pick one up later on for a good price. So for me, 13 bucks was not too bad. Now, the thing is that you got to keep your eye on it, because some figures, it's pretty rare, especially like on newer release figures, but they'll start going up in price where you cannot find them for any less than retail. So if you see that starts happening, it's pretty much a crapshoot, and you gotta pull the trigger when you want to. But now I do have my regular Wally West with no alterations. Now usually what I do is I'll put this one up on my display shelf, which I have here, and then I'll put my painted version, my custom version, on the shelf behind me. That's usually where I put my custom figures. But this is actually normal for me. I have tons of figures that I have actually bought 3 times. This is not the first time. I've even gone up to 4 or 5, but that's really rare. I think I have 6 Grim Knights, and that is my favorite McFarlane figure. So I just started buying him before he went up in price. I think the last one I paid for was like 28 bucks, and it was loose. And I have 6 Grim Knights, 2 in package, and then 4 here in my office for display. And this is like normal for me. I usually get 3 of each regular release. So if anybody supports McFarlane, I support McFarlane, and it just depends on if I really like the figure, if I have any custom ideas for a figure, or if I need parts for a figure. That's usually when I end up buying multiples, is when I actually have like custom work. So if I actually need like just the legs or just the head, I'll end up buying 3 or more McFarlane figures of the same release. So I'm just sick like that. That's how I run my collection. I've actually been doing this since DC Universe Classics. That's why I have all the DC Universe Classics, all the variant versions, and I actually have the whole collection in box. So this is how I collect the standard releases, but you guys decide on your own how you would like to collect. So let's get these out of the way. Now, the second type of figure that McFarlane releases is the collect to build figure, where each figure comes with a piece to build a bigger figure. Now, the first time McFarlane did this, he actually did the Batman Who Laughs and Nightwing and Batgirl, where he built that real small Batmobile. But he could see that the fans really didn't like that, and that was not going to go anywhere. So he scrapped that idea right away, and he went straight into the collect to build figures, which was, in my opinion, a really smart move. Now, we've had various versions of this, the regular line. We've also had this in the live action line. For example, the Suicide Squad, where you were actually building King Shark. I actually bought enough figures to build 2 King Sharks, so I still need to do that, but I have the figures ready to go. But when you actually do this, it's like a little bit bigger box than the actual regular releases. For example, I'll have here the Batman from the Endless Winter. So this is your standard size for the collect to build figures, and you get your figure with your actual piece in to build your Frost King. So that's really nice. Now, when I actually buy these, I usually buy the first wave, and then I hold off a little bit, and then I'll buy a second wave. That way I can actually keep those in box. And if I ever want to, I actually go ahead and buy a third round, and that is how I get two collectible figures. Like I have two Joker bots, Bat bots. I have one of each. And also I did Merciless, but I did one because I was gonna custom paint him, and then one just to have the way he was regularly released. So still, even with these collectible figures, I end up buying at least two, sometimes three of each release. Now, one tip I will give you is that you never want to buy this figure online, because usually they'll sell it for 20 bucks or even the same price, 25 bucks, but you do not get the piece to build the bigger figure. Now this doesn't make sense, because usually when people start doing this, you can easily go to Walmart or to Target and just pay the 25 bucks to get the whole thing. So why would you give away a part? It just doesn't make sense. Now I could understand if you really want a double of a figure and it's 15 bucks, then I would say go ahead and do it. But if you're gonna go ahead and spend more than $20, go ahead and just buy the whole thing. You'll have an extra piece if you ever want to sell it or trade it. And it just does not make sense to let resellers keep that extra piece and then make their money back by selling you just the figure on its own. So that's just a little rule that I have. So I usually just end up waiting until they sell the whole set for about 80 or 70 bucks. And then I go ahead and get another wave after that. That's the name of the game, is to buy your first set, buy your second one if you feel like the price has gone down enough, and then when they're trying to get rid of them at the end, go ahead and buy your third round. And that's only if you're crazy like me and you're a completist and you actually want multiples of a figure and you have the room to display them and everything. Now getting into that, I do have another storage room, and that is actually where I have all my minted box figures. So on one wall I have all my DC Universe Classics in box, and then on the other side I actually have all my DC Multiverse figures. So in fact, when you see all of the figures I have in here, that's not all. I actually have more in the storage room, and that's where I keep my mint in box collection. So I actually have more figures than so I actually have more figures than you can actually see. So yeah, I've actually spent a pretty penny on McFarlane figures over these last couple of years, but I would not change it for the world. I like it, and I also love customizing figures and posing them and messing around with them. Not so much taking photos, even though I will do that, but I just love having the collection and love building it and making it stronger and bigger. So now recently McFarlane has spread out, and now he is doing the page punchers. So that is another line that I have to start buying. Now actually it's the same protocol. I'll buy one wave and then hold off a little bit, and then I'll buy a second. But if I do not end up doing any custom work or anything like that, then I just stop there. So I basically just buy two of the page punchers for now, unless I really want to do some custom work, or if I really want another figure from those waves. But for now, I'm just buying two of those. That's my rule for right now. And that actually segues us into the painted versions. Now, this is going to be the Page Punchers Black Adam, but it is repainted in like a comic style of black and white. Now, these I am not going to buy two of, and the reason being because I don't really need this on my display shelf, because it's not an alternate head, it's not a different costume. All it is a kind of an artist proof of the figure. So these are one time when I do only buy one figure and I keep it in box. So the only way I will ever have an open one of these is if I come across it really cheap and it's worth it. But that doesn't bother me. That this actually goes into the storage with all the in-box collection. And the reason I do this is because this is how I actually collected the platinum editions of McFarlane, which is like this Rebirth Superman. Now, of course, when these first came out, there was different versions. There was the gold, the silver, and the bronze. I actually have the Arkham bronze figures, and the gold ones, the Deathstroke and the Batman. I just never ended up picking those up or finding them. And once I did want them, they were like $100, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. And that's fine. I mean, I don't really feel too bad about that. I'm more like into the standard releases. But when I do find these platinum figures or pick them up online, I actually keep them in box. So I have a Lobo, the Swamp Thing one, the Dark Knight Returns, and even a Hush in this unpainted version. Now, a lot of people didn't like these, but surprisingly, if you go online on eBay to pick these up, they still cost more than a regular standard release. You'll find these for like $25, $30. So even though people act like they didn't want them on the secondary market, it's really rare to pick these up below retail. But the ones that I do have, I have in box, and I'm never gonna open them. Really don't have no plans to display them, together unless it is in a boxed collection. So those actually look really good, even though I have them only in box. It doesn't bother me as much. So now let's actually talk about exclusives. I actually recently picked up another Martian Manhunter. Now, I actually found one of these in the wild and I reviewed it, and I recently found this one as well. So now this one is going to stay in box and I'm not going to open it. Only reason being because I don't have any really custom work that I would like to do with an extra one. So gold labels, I usually only buy 2 of each now. Exclusives are the only figures that I actually pre-order. I'm real leery of pre-ordering any standard releases, the reason being that they'll eventually be everywhere. But since the exclusive ones are sometimes hard to find, I do pre-order those when the pre-orders go up. And if I find them out in the wild, then I just cancel my order. Or sometimes I just leave it on, and that way I can get my second figure to actually keep in box. But the gold labels right now are actually coming out in full force, and it's really just up to you which ones you like and which ones you want to pick up. Me as a completist, I had to pick them up all. Just luckily, I don't usually buy more than 2 of the gold labels, just depending if I have any custom work that I would like to do. But usually they just stay like that in box. And now that actually takes us into vehicles. Now, vehicles are a little bit of a different animal for the same reason. Now, of course, I do have all the vehicles that have been released. I even have the Joker Dragon, the Bat Raptor. I did pick up this Bat Cycle from the Batman film. And I do have 2 of these, but one I have not opened yet. And the reason I did this is because, of course, when I display this bike, I actually like to have a figure on the bike. So just like before, I do have my standard release of Batson. This is actually my custom one that I did the magnetic grapple gun and the holster on. But I did buy a second one, and this second one is actually the one that will end up sitting on top of the bike. So I'm pretty crazy. That's how I do my collecting. And I actually have 3 of these because one is in box. Now that actually takes me to the live action figures, and it's the same thing, all depending on if I really like the figure or if I have custom work that I want to do. Like the Suicide Squad, I actually bought triplicates of the Polka Dot Man, Harley, Bloodsport, and Peacemaker. So all those figures I have ready to open and to build the King Sharks. I just haven't gotten around to it. But it all depends if I like the live action figure, if I end up buying 3 or 2. But I will never buy 1 because I do have to have one open and then one in box for my collection. So that's more figures that I have. At first, when McFarlane started the line, I was not going to buy the live action figures, but the Suicide Squad and the Justice League ones I really liked, so I ended up buying them, in multiples, and I'm actually really happy about that. love most of the live action figures. There's some that I don't really like, but it's another part of my collection. I actually have a shelf up here where all those figures go. I just haven't gotten around to opening a lot of the ones that I've missed and putting them up there on the shelf. Now, of course, in the movie line, they do have mega figs, as well as there is mega figs in the regular standard line. And of course, this is the same thing. I do I do end up buying two at least of each mega fig, one to keep in box and one to do custom work in. Like I recently picked up the Swamp Thing with horns, but since I do have custom work that I want to do on him, I ended up buying two. And if you don't believe me, here it is. Here is the second one. So the reason I bought two is because I want to open one to do some custom work on, and then one is going to stay in box and go to the storage. Now that's just another, problem that I have. Even the mega figs have to be doubled. Now my tip on buying the vehicles and the mega figs is, of course, buy your first one and then hold off a little bit and check the prices every once in a while. And when the prices drop, do end up buying a second one if you would like. Now I waited and waited, and this Swamp Thing just never went down in price until one day I saw that it went down to $30. So that is when I jumped on it and bought my second one. And I think it still hasn't gone down. They're still $30 at GameStop. And the vehicles are the same thing. You just gotta wait until they go down in price. I think some of the bikes ended up going for even $12 or $20. And if you would like to get multiple vehicles, that's the best time to do it. After you've waited months, they usually go down in price and you can pick them up pretty cheap. Now, just to reiterate everything I've just said, I actually have the gold label Dark Side Armored version that I never got to reviewing, but I do have it. And of course, I do have an open version. So it's really rare to see something like this because people had enough problem finding one and they didn't buy two like I did. But like I say, I am pretty crazy because as collectors, everybody has their little quirks. Some people only like comic accurate versions. Some people, if they don't like a figure, they just won't buy it because they're not completist. You have people like me and like D Hunter, who's another incredible collector. He's more of a Batman collector, but he does the same thing with all of his Batman figures. He collects one to open and one to keep in box in his collection. So, there's a lot of crazy collectors out there, and we're just part of this big, crazy community. Now, you think that's all, and it is definitely not all, because I am still missing the 2-packs. Now, I do have these 2-packs here, which is the Batman Curse of the White Knight. Now, I have one, which is going to be open so that I could, it's kind of late to review it, but I can open it with another one that I have and just make like a real quick update on my 2-pack collection. But I also have another one, and this one is actually going to go to my storage for the inbox collection. And I actually have a lot of 2-packs already. I have the Hal Jordan one, I have the Flash and the Red Death one, all the ones that have been released, and of course I do have the Nightwing and Red Hood 2-pack sealed and in my collection. Now that one is getting pricey, so I'm glad that I have one already in my unopened collection. Anyways, guys, I know I kind of went crazy on this, but this just shows you that I'm a dedicated DC McFarlane collector. You guys decide how you want to collect. I cannot judge anybody on what they collect or how they collect. This is just my tendencies and the way I found to actually try and save a little bit of money building this huge McFarlane DC collection. Anyways, keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one. I'm out.